Welcome to our webinar, the Livescribe Echo 2. This webinar is hosted by the Network of Assistive Technologists on this Friday, the 17th of June, 2022. Today, we're joined by Joe Valenti from smartpenCentral.com. And Joe is the founder of smartpenCentral.com, and he's been working there for quite a number of years in the AT field for over a decade, though. And Joe is always eager to help us ATs and the students and clients that we support so that they can improve their learning outcomes with effective, accessible technology. So today, Joe will be diving into the Livescribe Echo 2 from the perspective of the AT professional. An eagerly awaited webinar here, Joe, and I want to welcome you and thank you for joining us today and bringing this information to us. And it's great to have you here. I'm going to hand things over to you and let you take away the screen sharing and let you get started. So.
Well, thank you very much, Doug. Much obliged, and welcome everybody. I was saying to Doug earlier that my microphone seems to be sending a pretty loud signal, so if it turns out that I'm too loud, just turn me down a little. I don't seem to be able to control it as well as I'd like. Thank you very much for joining us today, everyone. It's absolutely a pleasure and a privilege to talk to you about one of my favorite things, my Livescribe Echo 2. I'm expecting that many of you have already got some basic familiarity with the previous generation of the Echo. You might still have the Echo desktop installed on your Windows and Mac PCs, and you really appreciated it because it really brought real value to a number of your students, colleagues, your audience, people that you're trying to help. And the reason it did that is because fundamentally, it's helping students get better results, better outcomes. That's really what we're all about, trying to give them the tools they need to leverage their own skills and get that better outcome. So if you don't mind, I'm actually going to begin by saying some pretty obvious things. And to a certain extent, I'm almost trying to get you to rehearse the way that I introduce this stuff to parents and to students themselves. And I often begin by saying, guess what? Some PhD level studies were done, and the conclusion was that people that take good notes get better grades. Completely shocking, like nobody's ever heard that before. But of course, that's exactly the case. And so how do we go about getting good notes? Every one of us has a buffer. It can be big, it can be small, it can be very detailed, it can be less so, but everybody's got a buffer. And sooner or later, every talking to you has to just lose stuff you can't keep up. And that certainly happened to me in high school and university, that 85% of my professors' class is pretty boring. There's not a heck of a lot going on. I'm certainly able to keep up. There's not an issue. I'm able to raise my hand, participate, be engaged. And if I choose to actually learn something, that's great. But invariably, with some profs, it would happen that in the last 5 minutes, he goes, oh, look at that, I'm out of time, and I've got to tell you everything that's on the midterm, and I got 4 minutes to do it. So then you get this dump of information you're expected to capture. Can't do it. And for anybody, let alone somebody that has a slightly smaller buffer, that becomes a real challenge. So wouldn't it be great if in that context, and indeed in any other context, we had a mechanism by which we could keep the student engaged, give them confidence to be able to raise their hands, ask questions, listen, learn something in the classroom environment, and still have the possibility of ending up with really good quality notes. So that's I think the premise that I try to encourage parents, in particular the funders, to look at, is that this is a tool that, when used properly, can absolutely result in a better outcome. Is it a tool that might end up in a desk drawer and be abandoned for years? Yeah, it can happen. And frankly, it does happen, especially if the right expectations aren't set up at the beginning. It's a tool, and the student absolutely has to learn how to use it and actually use it, change their behavior a little bit. And that's the hardest part. Your students have the disadvantage of being human beings, and they've got to change some of their behaviors so that they end up with these good notes. So the premise here, and I expect many of you already know this, is that because we're able to synchronize what one hears to what one writes, we're able to capture the audio in that classroom, whether you're in the first row or the 17th row of the auditorium. Basically, if you can hear it, the microphone and the pen is good enough to capture it. It's audible, and you'll be able to interpret it. You will hear the shoe shuffling and the coughs and everything else. It's audio in the ambient environment, and but then, as I say, you're syncing it to what you're writing. So if the student is taking notes, as you form that letter S, you will actually hear what it says, And although my audio is not connected to this right now, I'll just click here to show you that. And I got to get down here to do that. I'm going to click here and just show that.
This is the second.
Yeah.
You're not hearing it, but there's a snippet of audio there that's going on, and you're even watching it change color as it goes. And that premise of things that you have seen in the earliest version of the Livescribe product is back. It works. It's great. It's not vaporware. It's taken forever to get here, but finally it's here. And so at this point, as fellow technologists, I say this has been a little bit frustrating, I guess, because just as the pandemic was about to start, it was March of 2020, Livescribe was getting ready to ramp up to bring the new Echo 2 to the market, just as they were moving manufacturing facilities out of Korea and into Mexico, and the software development team moved from one place in the States to another. But it was really right then when the pandemic hit, and it caused, no end of trouble for them. So their parent company is an outfit called N.O.A.T. They're based in Scandinavia. They're a very serious company, a $1 billion outfit. They're absolutely deserving of respect. And I can't say that I understand all the context, but yep, like every other technology company, they were hit by chip shortages and price increases and everything else. And it just made earlier availability of the Echo 2 impossible. Happily, finally, we're here after multiple false starts. And back in March of 2022, finally, it was available again. And as I said at the outset, I'm really pleased to be able to talk to you about this. So what I propose to do in this presentation, I'm thinking about taking something like 20-25 minutes altogether. I'm going to begin. I was proposing to actually pick up the pen and write something in the book and just show you that it works. But I've kind of already done that. And if you're familiar with the Echo, you probably already get that this is going to be the outcome of our discussion. And the idea here is that the student can capture the audio, capture that handwriting, and importantly, after the fact, if he's busy getting the diagram off the blackboard of the molecular or the structure of a cell, and he got the cili and the mitochondria and all that stuff, but he's busy getting the diagram off, but he just doesn't have time to make notes about what all the functional parts of the cell are. He's able to record that audio and go back and fill in that diagram later. And that's, again, one of the great premises of the product, is that you're going to capture the audio, capture that information, but in the end, have the discipline to go back and ultimately create for yourself the good notes you need to study from. There's all that component of hand and moving and memory and the way the brain works. You guys already know about all that stuff, but these are all components that contribute to success. I've already said it twice. I'm going to say it a third time, but it is in the end ultimately about a great tool that works really well, but it's about changing people's habits and getting them to leverage it so that they can get the results that are available to them. So cool.
Joe, just before you go any further, there's been a question or a request in the chat for you, if you can, to enlarge the image. Just to, I guess, like to enlarge your, and just for those who are participating today, if they still are wanting to get it bigger, depending on the screen that you're working on with Google Meet, if you double click on the actual screen share that Joe has up there for you, it may zoom in a little bit, as well as if under the 3 vertical dots in your Google Meet toolbar at the bottom, you can click there and choose change layout, and that can help you as well. And hopefully that will get it big enough for us. As I know, some of this stuff is sharing software. It's always small little menus, and we'll blame that on the software companies, Joe.
Well, and you can. I have a lovely large high resolution monitor that doesn't often render so wonderfully on smaller screens. So if you happen to be on a laptop today, I completely understand, and don't hesitate. I'll look over at that chat area once in a while and just pick up on those cues. So thank you for pointing it out.
Thanks, Joe. Appreciate that. Sorry to have interrupted. Go ahead.
No problem. So as technologists, you guys get that demonstrating technology in this manner is often fraught with danger. And I was thinking, okay, great. On this particular computer, I didn't have my Livescribe desktop installed yet, and I thought, wouldn't it be great if I could demo the install, right live, and that'd be great. And then, of course, common sense and memory and past wounds woke up and said, geez, anything can possibly go wrong, definitely will. And it did. And aren't I glad that I went ahead and actually had it installed first, because in fact, I did encounter a couple of problems. But happily, I did have the presence of mind to record some of them on a video. And with Doug's permission, I propose to stop my sharing here in just a sec, but I'm going to share this little video. We tested it earlier. The sound came through. The whole thing is 14 minutes long. We're not going to listen to any, even a small part of it, but I'm going to show you some of the highlights of me fumbling around trying to get it to work, get to the point of what you need to do to actually get it installed, because these are totally things that will happen to you with some frequency on some people's machine. And if you listen to me in the video, you might hear me making a facetious joke about Macs. I'm a Windows snob, and sorry, but it is the case that I had problems, and none of my Mac customers ever seem to. So one of these days I have to get off my high horse. So again, I'm gonna stop my share here. On my side, I'm gonna minimize my my Livescribe desktop. I'm gonna reshare what we figured out before was a window, and it's this guy here. And if I'm lucky, you're seeing my face on a screen. Is that right, Doug? Have you got that?
Yes, that's coming through. Thanks, Joe.
I hear that nothing ever goes wrong on Macs. So
there I am making a joke about Macs. So I'm just going to pause. Is everybody hearing that audio okay?
It seems to be coming through, yes.
Yeah, great. Okay, so there's a little bit of stream of consciousness going on here, and as I say, I won't take you through the whole thing. But at a certain couple of points here, I want to mention to you. So here, I'm saying in the video, first thing you're going to do is go and get the free software that you require to have installed on your Windows or Mac. In particular, we're going to talk about those environments. We'll get back to mobile in a moment, because the Echo 2 does have a role to play on mobile. For those of you that are familiar with the A-Gear and the Symphony, it's really as though they squeezed the old Echo and the new Symphony into one pen, and with a couple of little tweaks and comments, that's more or less what they've done. You've got the capabilities of both devices in the one device that is the Echo 2. But when you go to Livescribe Plus, so to Livescribe, to the main page, you're going to, as you'll see here in the video, watch this and tell me what you think.
But importantly, this is the main page for the manufacturer's website. And if you come here to resources, you'd be tempted, as are many people, to click on, oh, Echo setup for the new Echo 2 SmartPen, which is what I've got here and what we're going to talk about in a little bit. So you can click on that. Don't do that. This is the old version of the software that works with the original version of the Echo SmartPen. Don't use it. Don't click here. Don't click there. This is not right. And lamentably, they haven't updated this page. So yeah, just don't go there. Where you want to go is to the Livescribe Plus page. That's right. Just was a moment ago, and this is where you'll download your application for Windows or for Mac, and of course you'll get it from the app stores for the mobile devices. So just keep that in mind, and after you do that, you'll end up with this application here. Now, a moment ago, I double-clicked this item, and literally nothing happened. And I've actually got a little piece of video, and I'm going to try to edit it in so you can see it. It would, I'd get to the windows turned on in order for this.
So I'm going to skip to the, just going to pause here for a sec. So the punchline here is that I downloaded the code, double clicked on it, and I got this, greeting screen, the splash screen. You click, I agree, and you press install. And after about 4 seconds, it just crashes, completely disappears, nothing's there. You go to Task Manager if you're on Windows, nothing's there, it's gone. Like it was just absolutely not working. So the point I'm going to be making here in a moment is just going to jump ahead in the video here. Some of you may be, if you're technologists, you probably have an idea about what we're looking at here, the Windows Features dialog box where you turn features on and off. I happen to be here on Windows 11, and it's got .NET 4.8. And by default, it seems that when Windows 11 installs 4.8, it turns off 3.5, which is nevertheless required for the Livescribe to work. And as you'll also see in this video, I'm just going to move this forward, but I'll mute the audio just for a sec. You'll see that I hit those plus signs to expand that stuff. And when I, even though I had clicked the blue checkbox there at the top, the subfolders weren't turned on, and I discovered rather painfully that those have to be turned on too, or it doesn't work. Go figure. So I'm sharing the benefit of my bad experience to tell you that if you encounter that problem and it doesn't install, that's almost certainly going to be, or at least it's almost certainly going to be the problem that you're having, because otherwise it does work very well and it installs very cleanly. Is there a Mac version of this kind of problem? I regret I don't know. I happen not to own the device. But if you ever have troubles installing on Mac, do let us know, or I might refer you to the manufacturer's support team, who are also very good. So there's the secret sauce for this first part of the presentation, is just make sure you get your .NET installed properly. And I also in the video went on to point out that I tried to install it after merely turning the features on, wondering if it would install. And I went into my task manager to see, and because it crashed again and it didn't work. And here's about the 4-minute mark. This is where I decided, okay, I've got to shut down, restart in order for it to actually get picked up and for the .NET 3.5 to actually work. So that happily is what happened. Oh, and one more fun thing. When I actually got it to run, my anti-malware, I happen to run this one. Who knows if you're running stuff, but you're certainly going to see students that have some kind of anti-malware, let's say the word antivirus, that'll be running on their machines. And mine totally picked it up and completely blocked the install. I had to go and put it into my exclusions area for both install and for monitoring. And only then was I finally able to actually install it. And so here in the video, at some point here, there I am, I'm successfully getting it going. And for the rest of this particular video, it's mostly me talking about how you do certain things. I'll show that to you live in a little bit. I'm just going to make sure that there's nothing else here that I want to talk to. Well, so I'm glad I talked about this. So because I can't, since I've already now updated the firmware on my pen, this is a part I won't be able to reproduce. So I'll show you this little snippet of video as well. Hang on. And I'll turn up the volume.
By the way, I did have the presence of mind to fully charge my Livescribe SmartPen ahead of time.
Aren't I smart, eh?
Right away, it's going to give me this comment about saying that it needs a firmware update. This is a very common thing. Firmware is being updated almost weekly. So whenever you get yours, you could reasonably expect you're going to see this same message. So we're going to click OK. And off it goes. And so we're I'm going to click on bundle. You have to click on bundle to make it happen.
So here in this part, candidly, I fumbled a little bit because I had forgotten that there are 2 pieces of code that have to go in. They have the same firmware number, and I had at a certain point been under the assumption that the firmware was part of a bundle and that one was a component of the other, whatever. It's not the case. They're really 2 different pieces of code that have to get onto your pen. And the UI is goofy because when it's white, it's not selected. When it's light yellow, it's kind of selected, but not really, and has to be dark yellow. So it's a little funny. But again, the bottom line here is that after you go through it, you'll end up with, you'll see this part, this update is now done, and that's underway. And in the end, what you want to see is that screen there where you're at 100% on both. And for everybody that's ever handled a USB cable, does it happen sometimes that the USB cable is funky and it doesn't always, it lets go and it shows itself disconnecting? That'll happen. And one last comment is that at a certain point, specifically in the firmware update, it will also reboot the pen. So you'll hear the thing turning itself off. You'll notice that it's disconnected and you'll wonder, gee, did I hit it? Did I lose the connection? Whatever. The answer is maybe. That can happen too, that it interrupts the connection and stuff will, not happen. But there is a spot in there where it does reboot the pen. So just be aware of that as well. And I'm glad to skip over this part of the video because I did fumble a little bit getting it all done. But in the end, there I am, update done 100%, and everything was just as it should be. So there you go. And that's about it for the updates and things. And the rest we'll go and take a look at through, look at it live when we get to that part. So unless there's any questions so far, specifically from you, Doug, but really from anybody else about this whole idea, maybe I'll even stop and take some questions now, and then we can get on with the next stage, which is a little bit more of a live demo. Yeah?
Yeah, we do have a couple of questions that have come in here, and one of the, and one comment, forgive me if I'm mispronouncing it, Ellie has listed that it's a known issue with the .NET, and there's some instructions there, as well as an additional link for some information in the chat. So we'll make sure that that's included in the replay resources after the webinar, but as well, it's there for us now. If anybody wants to grab the copy and pasting it out, that would be might be helpful for you. And Jim has got 2 questions, and I think both of them you're going to get to. It's about sharing out in a library setting, and then connecting the Wi-Fi connections and that. So we'll let those come naturally in the presentation.
Sure. If I may, I'll talk about the Wi-Fi right now, and yes, we will come back to the lending out strategies. And broadly speaking, if you've done this before with Echo, it's going to be very similar to that, but we'll get to some of the details. On the specific question of enterprise Wi-Fi, let me point out to you that the Echo 2 is not the previous product called the Sky. This is kind of confusing depending on where in your journey you came across Livescribe products, but there was an Echo, and then there was a Sky, and then there was an 8 gig Echo. There's a couple of versions of it. The Sky was like a kind of an Echo, but instead of connecting via a USB cable and syncing that way to the hard drive on your computer, it would use Wi-Fi to connect directly to an Evernote account. And that is not the case here. There's no direct connection to Evernote or anything else directly, and there is no Wi-Fi connection. So, and yes, the enterprise Wi-Fi was a problem for that previous product, the Sky, which came a little bit after the Echo. Totally correct, I get it, but it doesn't apply here. There's no Wi-Fi on this. We have Bluetooth, and we'll talk about that in a few minutes. And we've got what I'll call the classical traditional USB connector. I'll highlight, however, that connector is a USB-C connector, not the micro USB that we had on the previous product.
Perfect. Okay. Thanks, Joe. And Jim, hopefully that answered your question. And you were talking, Joe, about install problems. And I apologize if I was distracted by behind the scenes stuff and missed it, but you had shared with me that sometimes there is a defect in the pen that comes up when it asks to download and it doesn't accept it.
Right. So I kind of touched on it in the presentation. Then I think the key takeaway from that is that the combination of USB-C cables being fickle and the UI not being great, and the process, frankly, varying in time. I've done this sometimes when the whole thing happens inside of 15 seconds, and other times it takes a minute and 15 seconds, and it leaves you wondering what's up. It's my assertion that each of you with the skills that you've got will figure it out. And importantly, you'll notice on the screen here, I'm at that lower tab, the settings, and in here you have a couple of options, preferences, and you set up cloud services. That's where your Evernote is, by the way, in a minute. But there's this updates tab. And while your pen is connected, it'll do a diagnosis and determine whether or not you do need a firmware update. So all you have to do is periodically, if you choose to, come in and do that. If I may say, I haven't noticed my pen automatically prompting me to update my firmware when there was an update available. I think I remember seeing it once that it did kind of prompt me, but I also definitely remember discovering a little bit by accident that there was a firmware update that I hadn't yet applied. So you'll have to play with it a little yourself. This has happened to me now like once or twice or 3 times, and I can't yet say with absolute conviction that the prompts aren't showing up. Maybe they are, hopefully they are, but in case they're not, this is where you go and you'll see very clearly when the pen is connected, of course, that a firmware might be in need of update. So there we are. Okay. But otherwise, as we might say in French, débrouillez-vous, and you'll figure it out. So there we go.
All right. Thanks, Joe. I'll let you
continue.
Questions
on this part, I'll take it for granted that with the collective skills in this virtual room, we've got a way to go to the right place to download the code, get our .NET figured out, don't let our antivirus get in the way, and ultimately get your Livescribe desktop actually working. So, and that's the premise from which we'll start now. So I'm going to stop my presentation there and go back to sharing my entire screen, which is here. And I can now minimize. This was the video that we were just looking at. I'll move that out of the way, and I'll bring up my Livescribe desktop application. So there we go. And I'll just check again. Any questions? Doug, we're good if I do a bit of a live demo here?
Yeah, go right ahead, Joe. That'd be great.
Great.
And just
So-
anybody has questions as we go, please
Yeah.
either raise your hand and we'll get you unmuted so that you can contribute, or add it into the chat.
Great. So once again, I want to highlight my ambition, again, is to help you do your jobs. Would I like it if you buy something from us at the end? Yeah, and I'm even going to give you a coupon code to help you do that. But I have taken some time to really try to anticipate all the bugs, troubles, hassles, headaches, strategies you're going to need, not only with the technical side, but also in dealing with your client and figuring out how you're going to help them to not only use the tool, but change their behaviors. And so I hope that that bias of mine is coming through, and I'll be very happy to get any feedback now or anytime to make sure that I'm delivering that value to you. So in my hand, I've got some Livescribe paper, and just in case there's anybody in the audience that isn't aware of it, that's the one gotcha with Livescribe, is you do have to use their special paper. How come? Your Livescribe Smart Pen actually has a very small camera in the end, and that camera is, when the pen is turned on, and here's my big joke, it works way better when you turn it on. Yeah, and you've heard that one before. So here I am turning it on. When you turn it on, you'll get that Livescribe prompt, and you get that little tone, and it'll, I think it comes up, in my case, it'll show up with giving me the dates typically. I'm just waiting for it to finish booting. It's a time of day, actually, that's there, and I have a full charge. So that little camera is going to be scanning the page, the pre-printed dot paper that is a kind of a light gray green sheen, but to the naked eye, it's not immediately obvious there's anything resembling a dot pattern there. But for the few of you that don't know it, there is such a dot pattern, and you can even describe it as a three-dimensional dot pattern, even though it's only two-dimensional paper. And that is because, yes, there are X and Y coordinates for the placement of the dots. There's also color variation in the dots themselves, and that's that third dimension. And that's the mechanism by which the computer, a little very tiny mini computer running a Linux kernel, believe it or not, is in this thing. And it is in the business of interpreting your pen strokes and knowing that you're at the top of page 20 in book number, whatever this is, book number 2 in my case, of this 3-subject notebook. It takes care of all that math for you so that you don't have to. And you're just going to go and open page 21, which is exactly what you're looking at on the screen here right now, and getting that done. So now I wonder if this will work. Doug, I'm going to stop sharing my screen for just a sec. This is a bit of an experiment. I haven't tried this, but I want to instead share my camera. I wonder if it's going to let me do that, because I want to show you some stuff. And it's not really letting me do that. Is there a way to maximize my camera and not share my desktop? Well, no, if I turn off the desktop, you're seeing nothing but me, right? So that's true.
That's right.
Yeah. Okay,
Yeah.
cool. Thank you.
Jim has got his hand raised, so maybe
Okay.
we'll take just a quick second here and let Jim come on with his contribution. Go ahead, Jim.
Sorry, that was an error.
All right. That was the best contribution so far from the audience. I'm just kidding.
There you go. Okay, so it's like a regular classroom, in other words. That's fine. So I've given you a little, and I'm glad to have the whole screen here now, just so I can show you, like, you're not looking at a little version of me holding stuff up to the camera, which admittedly is hard, but we're talking about a physical product and physical paper. I think this will be a little bit more useful. So again, most of you are familiar with this, but just to make it clear, down at the bottom of every page, you have a series of controls. And for those of you that remember the old style notebooks, you had more controls at the bottom here. Livescribe determined over the course of the years that people got confused by having the full set of controls repeated in every single page, and it actually diminished the quality of the interaction that many students had with it. And so they've gone a little bit minimalistic, and now you've really just got your record, pause, and stop buttons down here in the corner. You've also got tags for a star and a flag and a tag, and those can be programmed to do certain things. We'll talk about that a little bit later. In fact, it might not even be in the scope of this video, because it can take a while to describe some of that stuff, but we'll get to that. So the things that you think you know about the old Livescribe paper absolutely apply. It's the same dot pattern. Your books that you had before are the same. And if I may say, the ink cartridge that you have on your old Echo pens is the same one that's being used here, and you just pull it out with your fingertips, stick it back in. You can feel a little click, as it were, when it goes in and it's in place. And that means the ink cartridge is still a little bit light on ink. Like, don't we wish that when they were redesigning this thing, could they please have given me something closer to the Bic pen with, you know, a full half-pound of ink that would last forever? Well, I guess we all know why they didn't do that. And part of it is, yeah, they want to be in the ink and the paper business. It's fair, to be honest, it is also fair to say that despite 10 years of progress in the technology, the pen itself, perhaps to your surprise, is not terribly different in terms of width, girth, weight than the previous one. It's better. The balance is better. I find that the balance, the weight is a little bit lower down in the pen, so it's a little bottom heavy as opposed to the top heavy. It just made it, the momentum was such it was hard to move around. There's some nice grips on here now. That's probably not going to come through in the camera, but you'll see that this area here is textured a bit, so that's a nice surface to write on, to write with. But it is absolutely not as slim as your Bic. And for those members of your audiences, your populations that have trouble grasping slightly larger writing instruments, I regret that this product is not going to solve that problem. It's about the same as it was before, just so you know. And of course, there's the screen that you see there. And once again, there's a microphone and a speaker built right into the device, so that while I'm not connected to my computer at all, while I'm just, you know, out in the wild with nothing other than the pen and the paper, I can write on my page. That's what you're seeing, what you saw in the Livescribe app a minute ago that was all black text. That's that first line of text that was up there, because I simply didn't have my audio turned on at that point. And for the second one, even though visually on the page it looks exactly the same, I did have my microphone on. We're going to do it again in just a sec. But that one turns green, and you can see it acts a little bit differently. And because I remember that this has audio on it, I'm able to take my pen that's turned on, tap on it, and so that was not much of an audio snip.
This is a second.
But there you go. So I'm just going to pause that, and by tapping anywhere on the handwriting, I'm going to play exactly the sound that was being recorded, synchronized down to the tenths of seconds, and even a little bit faster than that. It's very high reliability, high fidelity, I guess is maybe the word I'll use, but it syncs really well, and it's quite close in time. So that means that without having any computer, any hard disk, any screen at all, your pupil can go back to his or her desk, have that diagram of the mitochondria and the cilia and the cell wall and everything else on there, listen to, he can tap on the diagram and listen to what the prof was saying at that time, and right there and then use the white space that you're going to teach them to leave to write the notes around that diagram and fill it in, and it will then show up on their page and get synced. And what they'll end up with is a really nice page of notes that has the diagram, has the audio, and has everything they need to be able to, you know, study in that week before. Again, recognizing you guys are, let me entertain you just for a second. Say, I got a call from a student. He happened to have been from U of T. I'm a McGill snob, so forgive me. But he basically called up and said, hey, man, I've been recording my entire session all year for my astrophysics class, whatever it was that he was doing. And it's like, my exam's tomorrow. How do I get the audio off my pen and turn it into a nicely formatted Word document with annotated footnotes? Dude, you really didn't get it. So it is important to highlight to students, if you don't already know this, we are not in the speech to text business. For that, most of the time you still need a supercomputer, and that's why your phone works so well, because it's going to talk to a big mainframe. And when you're doing your Google Translate and stuff like that, it's actually going out with low latency to a mainframe coming back. And that's amazing technology, but no, that's not in our pen, certainly at least not yet. So we're recording voice, and you'll see later that we can transcribe handwriting into text. That's cool, and it works, but we're not doing speech to text. So for the few of you that didn't know that, you're now reminded. Okay, so there we go. And now, just for fun, since we've got the camera going, I'm going to take my pen. I'm going to tap on record. Whoops, I missed it. I'm going to tap my record button. Oh, I got to stop it first. There we go. Stop there. And I'm going to record, and I see in my little camera that I'm recording 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm going to write down 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm now going to stop. I've got my 11 seconds worth of audio, and when I take my pen and I tap on something, whoops. Good heavens, come on, technology, work. Why isn't it working? Oh, it's still recording, for goodness sakes. I didn't stop it properly. Yeah, embarrassing. So I got 14 seconds of audio instead of the 7 or 8 that I thought. So now I'm going to tap on it, and technology work. There you go. And you're listening to me embarrass myself over and over again. So there you go. In fact, it was 27 seconds of audio altogether. So it really is as simple as that, and those things that you think you remember from before still apply. So now I'm going to go ahead and share my screen again, and we'll get back to the job of, Doug, can you confirm for me that we're seeing the Livescribe desktop? It's kind of flashing at my end, so I'm concerned that you're not seeing it normally. Does it look okay for you?
It's coming through fine on our end.
Okay, good. That's great.
Yep.
Because I was sharing the application as opposed to my desktop this time. So what I'm going to do now is search my desk here for my USB-C cable and my pen that's turned on, and I'm going to connect it up. You'll notice at the bottom, if you can see it, it's just now said connected. Previously, of course, it said not connected. And when it does this marvelous job where we're here. I'm just going to point out that the so-called hamburger symbol up here just is a flyout for the labels that go on these items. I'm going to leave it expanded so you can get used to it and see it. But it does kind of cover up. It doesn't push things over the way I wish it kind of did. So anyway, so one of the things you're going to be learning that is different now. Now we're into the stuff that is not like your Echo desktop, because it isn't Echo desktop. It's the Livescribe Plus application. And it is similar but not identical on mobile, iOS, Android versus on PC, Windows, and Mac. I privately kind of wish that they did a little bit better job making the two experiences a little bit more similar. They're not quite exactly the same, but they do. Everything is analogous. So here in Windows, we've got this flyout. As I say, we're in the notebooks, and here are the 3 physical paper products I happen to have been writing on. I had a small, and I'm just going to reach and show you this. If you haven't seen it out of the box yet, Livescribe will tell you that they give you everything you need out of the box, and it's true, they do. They give you the pen, an itsy bitsy little USB cable, and I mean literally it's 4 inches long, not very likely to be satisfying for many people. They give you 2 ink cartridges, and they give you this as a paper product. It's the size of your hand, and for note taking in a classroom, quite useless. So you're almost, you're going to recommend every single time that your students buy some paper. We happen to sell bundles that include a carrying case, a paper product, extra ink, really everything you need to get you through a semester. But so here's an example of that paper. And note now that if I'm in this first view, which is the notebook view, even though I can see on the right here that some is black and some is green, I can click all I want and it's not doing anything. And you're going to wonder, like I did when I first looked at it, what the heck? I can see it's green and it's not playing. That's kind of frustrating. And there's a player sort of button down here, but you're not hearing the audio. It's literally only showing you the handwriting changing color. I kind of wonder what this is about, honestly, but that's literally what it does, is it changes color. So it's lovely, but not terribly useful. And that's what you get on this notebooks tab up at the top. The next tab that we're going to take a look at is the calendar tab. This is kind of useful. I find it's keeping track of which snippet, what handwriting you wrote on which day. So if you knew that physics is on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and you're quickly trying to find your physics notes from late June or middle June, then that's actually quite handy to get to that snippet. And there is an example of a page that was written on that particular Friday. And here it is. So that's kind of handy. And once again, though, it's not terribly useful in terms of playback, because all it's going to do is show me the handwriting without the audio. So again, I kind of wonder why they didn't put that in there, but that's what they do. And so there you go. This next one is called the feeds tab. And here's the spot where, in decreasing chronological order, we have every snippet of handwriting that we've done. and it does quite a good job of converting handwriting to text. This is a second with audio. You'll see that's perfect. It's very sensitive, and that's a really good thing with our product, is that it does have very high resolution. The smallest note item on here will get picked up, and so here's me, you know, tapping somewhere on the page and getting a little bit of nonsense. And here's a little kind of danger point that I tapped on my number 2 a couple of times after, while the pen was still recording. I remember I thought I'd stopped it, but I didn't. And so it actually ended up contributing to confusion. And that's the reason that my number 2 turned into a happy face and I missed my comma, because I was still recording when I thought I'd stopped. So there's, again, with a little bit of practice, you'll see that won't happen to you. And but that's what happens. The kind of interesting bit is here now we finally get into this pencasts tab, and now finally we can take a look at some of the audio. You can sort it by date. That's the pencast name. It defaults to a date sequence, and this is the last page that we looked at. And I'm going to click here, and now finally I can hear my audio. And if you
the second note.
And now you're not getting it kind of through the system, but, or maybe you are. Yeah, you might be actually, to the way I shared it. You might actually be hearing that kind of normally. But
little notes to myself that I have to tell folks about what the paper controls can be. I see that.
Yeah, and we're going to talk a minute about paper controls. So you'll notice, however, that on this page, and this is really probably one of the most important things I'm going to tell you is right here, is that there's a gotcha. Believe it or not, when you connect your pen, you sync it up, and all the data that we've just taken a look at through all these other tabs is, and this in particular, this 1, 2, 3, 4, it's right there. Clearly, the data has been transferred. Astonishingly, the audio has not. Why? I don't know. I don't know. You have to come into this pencasts area, and in here, click to sync the audio. And if you don't, it won't be there. Select all, download, and there it comes. And when I'm done, I'm done. And now I've got an extra item in here that I can sort. And I'm not seeing, how come I'm not seeing green writing on my 1, 2, 3, 4? That's distressing me a bit.
This is a second note.
So let me figure that out. If I click to sync, I don't have anything there. So I've managed once again to screw up my demo, because my assertion is that you should have seen a row entry in here that was the oh, there it is. It's not in the order I expected it to be. Oh, because it goes 0, 2 instead of 12. Okay, it's here. So this interface isn't great. You know, honestly, it's not great, because look, I was able to embarrass myself by not finding the audio that I just uploaded. And
1, 2, 3, 4.
Good.
Now I'm gonna stop.
And on it goes, and there you go. So I apologize. It did download. There it is. But here's a curiosity. When I'm looking at this piece of audio, I'm looking only at this snippet from the period that I turned my pen on and started writing to the time that I stopped. I'm seeing that and only that. And the other snippets that are on this physical page are not on this page. And so I offer a modest criticism of the product in that it's, you know, if you want students to end up with a full page of notes, you kind of have to encourage them to do full page sessions while they're doing the recording and their note taking, so that you'll end up with a full page of notes in one stream. And I'd encourage them and you to remember to start your recording at the top of the page, stop your recording, don't pause it, don't let it go on to the second page, because it'll make the audio management inconvenient, is I guess what I'll say. And as you play with it yourself, you'll see that it's a good strategy to just remember to start and stop on a single page, fill up the page, and use it that way. And as you can see, that's not what I did here, and that's why I've got 3 separate segments of audio to show here. So there's a pretty good live introduction into what the product is and does. We can jump down here to the settings. Here's where we talked about the updates. Because the pen is connected right now, You'll see it down at the bottom here. It says connected. There are no more updates. That's great. If you want to do a diagnostic, it actually asks you to, I'm going to actually clear this out, but you actually have to disconnect it and reconnect it and then do the diagnostic. And that might be something you'd eventually send to tech support. It's handy, but you probably won't use it very much. And the last thing that we'll talk about, and maybe we'll see if time permits for us to get into all the things related to Evernote, Google Drive, and Dropbox. But given who you guys are, we probably don't need to spend a ton of time just to say, provide your credentials to those 3 services, and you'll find you then have a mechanism by which you can send data from your Livescribe desktop environment into that hosted environment and be able to then share it with members of the class and all that kind of stuff. So we did have and still do have a very healthy population of teachers that will use the Livescribe SmartPen with a document camera, and they can demonstrate to the classroom on their notebook what it is they're doing, but then use their pen with the audio. And after the class has seen, instead of doing it up on a note on the blackboard, do it with a document camera, present it to the class, do your algebra problem, whatever it is, your cellular biology, and capture it on a piece of paper. And then the leader, the teacher, will with Livescribe Desktop take that page with the audio, upload that, put it into Google Drive, and everybody's got a really handy version of things that they can look at. So that's a very popular use case as well. This little part I'm going to end with sharing. Now, here again is something that is not quite the way I would like it. It's not the way it used to be. And am I just getting old and cranky? Maybe, but you'll see what you actually can do. If I'm here looking at this snippet and it's got this, this is the one with the second piece of audio, and I now want to export this either as an email or to my local disk drive, that's what I'm going to do. My audio, my output formats are an MP4. Yes, that's a movie format, literally, or an audio-only MP3. Where is your PDF pencast? It isn't here yet. It is available on the mobile versions. So running on iPhone, iPad, Android, tablet, phone, you'll see that there is a pencast PDF that you can do with that. And that gets into the second personality the product has to work with mobile devices. At the moment, the desktop versions don't yet publish that pencast PDF. And I have to say, initially, that kind of bummed me out. It's like, gosh, that's really disappointing. And I won't deny it is a little disappointing because it's what we're familiar with, and PDF is so universally available. But I'm happy to say, on the other side, that it actually works. The movie thing actually works, and the reason that it works is here's my kind of pencast folder. Oh, you're not seeing this now. So I'm going to stop presenting this for just a sec, and I'm going to present my entire screen, and that's this one. And now you're looking at my entire screen, I trust, as soon as it comes up. And here you're simply looking at me on the spot on my computer where I keep my pencasts. And after I hit that export button, what did I get? I got this. And here it's a piece of...
This is a second note.
Where's my player? Oh, it's over here. So this is going to be small for some of you, but
tell folks about what Paper Controls can.
Here is what the video looks like. And it's not awful. Like it's not as familiar as the PDF. And at first, as I say, I was a little put off that I wasn't getting a PDF that I was familiar with and that I wanted to have from my prior experience. But this works. And if I had a whole page of notes, I would have a whole page of audio, a whole page of handwritten notes, and it would still change color exactly the same way. And honestly, there's nothing that I can't do with this one that I couldn't do with the other one. Admittedly, with the exception that in some PDF editors, I could, for example, take that PDF and use my keyboard to annotate or do some other things with it as a PDF. I could argue I could take an MP4, a video editor, and do the same sort of thing with this format. Okay, I'm stretching a little bit because it's not quite the same ease of use, but it is fair to say that certainly for the modern student who's familiar with what an MP4 is, this isn't so bad. And while I had emotionally some reluctance to be very accepting of this idea, I'm beginning to get over it. It does seem to work, and it's okay. Okay, so at this point, with your permission, I propose to take a small break for some questions, and I've got one or two other things I can talk about, but this is a logical spot where we'll stop. And Doug, you can help me be mindful of the time and just let us know, what the clock is looking like.
Yeah, I think we're doing good for time, Joe. I appreciate you keeping an eye on that. And we've got a couple of questions that have come in, as well as we're still holding Jim's one for the sharing and through a loan library.
I might get
I
to
think
that
that's one of exactly. So I just want to let Jim know we haven't forgot about him. Kevin is curious whether the Echo 1, apparently it used to split in the middle. I'm wondering if this Echo 2 is more solid. And what
I'm
about
happy to say that all those annoying things that happened with the Echo, they have actually learned their lessons, and a lot of the issues related to build quality and some other things are absolutely resolved. So the split that Kevin's referring to, and maybe some of you experienced this as well, the body of the SmartPen before used to have a top and a bottom, and it was glued. And if there was any imperfection at all and any stress created when the glue dried, it wouldn't be immediately obvious, but with time, the glue would pull apart, or maybe it got warm sometime and then just settle in. It would sometimes cause a split in there. So now we've got a unibody. There's no such issue. The top of the pen kind of looks like it might have a clicker on it, but it doesn't. There's just the top of the USB-C. And yes, this is a very solid, singular piece of good, hard ballistic plastic. So no issue there. Another very famous problem had to do with the USB, the micro USB connector on the end of it. That's one of the many reasons that we're migrating away generally from USB, micro USB interfaces, is that it was two reasons. The first is that the pins inside the connector could with time actually physically bend, and somebody, for whatever reason, it's not quite lining up, and then you give it a little push, and now you've literally broken it. And the pin is bent. It's a tiny little piece of metal. It's off by less than a millimeter, but the data won't flow. And sometimes the power, it would allow you to charge it, but you could never, ever again get data to flow through it, and there's nothing to be done. It's not repairable. Neither we nor the manufacturer could possibly ever maintain a technical force that could do repairs on devices. And you can do the math and figure out that if I pay a technician, a crappy $25,000 a year to sit at his desk and repair pens, even if I only had that modest cost, what do I have to charge for repairs in order to even break even on that? And where do I get the parts? It just doesn't work. Like everything consumer electronics, lamentably, if it really breaks, you throw it out, you get a new one. And that's the case with your old Echo, and I suppose eventually it'll be the case with this one too. But the good news is on USB-C, that whole problem of pin breaking is a complete non-starter. It's a much better designed interface. It's also mirrored in the sense that there's not an up and a down on it. As you know, it's the same up and down. You just pop it in and it works. So that's great. The other very famous issue with Echoes, people talk about this a lot more, it seems to me, than actually happened. By my imperfectly scientific measurement, it occurred in about 1.5% of pens that we delivered. But it turned out that if you, for that small percentage, if you took your Echo pen, you put it in a drawer and left it there long enough for the battery to very, very fully discharge, and that usually meant 8 or 9 or 12 months or more. If the battery is very fully discharged, what can happen when you then find it out of the drawer, plug it in? There was a design flaw in a capacitor, and if there's any engineers, you know what a capacitor is. It was such that, long story short, you plug it in that first time, and because of the way it was designed, it would literally short out the screen instantly. And there's nothing you can do about it. You don't know what it's not as if you can never plug it in, because of course then it's useless. You're never using it. You have to plug it in. And in that rare occasion, you plug it in and it would immediately fry the screen. And now you have basically a desk accessory that doesn't do anything. So happily that problem has been fixed, as to have many other things. The sound quality is a little better, both on the microphone and the speaker. I'd say this, we've actually got 10-year-old Echo 1s in kindergarten classrooms, and they're still working despite being tossed around the classroom all the time. I concede it is nearly miraculous, but I can tell you that in Burlington, there is such a kindergarten classroom where that's being done. And yeah, it was pretty robust, and this one's definitely going to be more robust. So it's a very good point. But all those concerns you had about build quality, about the connector, about the battery, about the display, I'm really very confident that they've done a good job addressing them. And then after having said that, as the manufacturer's representative, I'll take a step back and remind you that just like Sony and just like any other consumer electronics manufacturer, there's a 12-month warranty from the manufacturer. And if something happens within those 12 months, no harm, no foul, you get a new pen and all good. And if it happens in the 13th month, as was the case with my PS4, I pick on Sony all the time, and but I've been close to my 14th month, I literally got smoke coming out the back. I bring it back, in that case, I think the Future Shop, and they go, sorry, nothing we can do. And there wasn't. And so no PS4 at my house anymore, which turned out to be a good thing. So yeah, that's the reality, and that's, again, it's about economics. So there we go. Where's the microphone located? So when you look very carefully, I'm going to see if you can kind of see this. The lighting isn't great. I'm up at my cottage north of Montreal, and this kind of cheapo camera doesn't let me control the lighting very well. So you can't see that there's some kind of little holes in here. That's where the speaker is. And just above here, there's a little dot, and that's where the microphone is located. And yeah, I'm happy to say that you don't really care where the microphone is located. You're never going to cover it with your hand. That's kind of why it's up there. Same thing with your speaker. And yeah, the microphone quality is good. It's not as good, potentially, as the microphone that might be built into your iPhone or your Android tablet. And there are reasons, therefore, why some customers will prefer to use this pen in mobile mode, and we'll get to that in a minute. But when it's working in what I'll call PC mode, which is what I expect most of you are going to do, then yeah, there's the microphone. If I may, I'll segue just a little bit on Jillian's comment about the microphone. One of the reasons that I anticipate you're going to continue to recommend a USB-C cable synchronizing asynchronously to the hard disk on your computer is indeed because your student in the classroom is going to be fully independent. There's no need for a third device you have to sync and get working. It runs just fully independently. And furthermore, and this is what I do often say to parents and to students myself, is let me ask you, when you sit down to do your work, based on those notes that you've taken, where is that? Are you writing an essay on your iPad, or are you going to be composing that essay on your computer with a keyboard and a big screen and everything else? And of course, invariably, they come back and say, yeah, I get my real work done in a PC environment. So that's I invite you to kind of retain that notion, because in my humble opinion, that is the mode that most people are going to want to work in. Are there some people that will want to, have that work on mobile and are comfortable writing essays on an iPad? I mean, sure, there are such people, or they'll take it and work on it somewhere else. That's great. But I can say from years of experience, I genuinely believe that a large majority of your audience is going to prefer this classical Echo mode with the asynchronous and independent operation. So there we go with that.
All right, Joe.
Okay.
What about a headphone jack, Joe?
What headphone jack?
What about a Bluetooth connection for the headphones, Joe?
There's a Bluetooth connection. There's a Bluetooth radio in here, and no, it will not connect to your headset. So
There you go, Ann.
It'll connect to the Livescribe Plus app, and only to the Livescribe Plus app. And I'll show you that in a second.
All right, Ann wanted to have.
Now, hear me out when I say that if you are going to mobile, and we'll come to that in a second, if you're using a mobile device, nothing to say that your earphones connected via Bluetooth to the device won't work just fine, and they will. So when you're playing back, that particular objection of not having a direct connection to the pen turns out not to be as strong. But for the person running in PC mode and had the convenience of being on the bus on the way home, tapping and listening to the notes through the headset that was connected physically to the pen, that's a use case that we can no longer support. I regret there just isn't a 3.5 millimeter jack in this device anymore. And ask Steve Jobs why that is. Nobody's putting 3.5 mil mics into anything anymore. So, but it isn't there. So, very good question. And
all right, and Ann's library is going to be noisy, I guess, because yeah. So sorry about that, Ann. But We've got a couple other questions here about Alice was asking if you've used the Symphony pen that's on the Livescribe website. So I think asking if there's any comparison, maybe
Yeah.
what's the status of the Symphony pen?
So yes, and in fact, if we still have time, I can take a few minutes now to start thinking about the bipolar personality that this device has got, because we can start talking about how it behaves in a mobile environment. To answer the question specifically, the Symphony was the latest iteration, and what had been the Livescribe 3 turned into the A gear, eventually turned into the Symphony, and those were devices that synced via Bluetooth exclusively to mobile devices, couldn't practically sync to a PC, and provide a really nice interaction in the sense that you have the experience of synchronous writing on the page, showing up on the screen, and that gives a great experience. That's really fun. The challenge with it is that the data is then on your mobile device, and we found in many educational environments, at least, it was not super well received. And why? Because people like to work at their keyboard on their computers with a monitor to actually get their work done. But we'll get to that.
Okay.
So
Perfect. And just a couple other quick questions here, Joe, and then we'll get into the mobile, and then we still have the lending library stuff and that.
Yeah.
Ellie wants to know what the procurement is like for the paper, ink, and pen availability.
Well, I'm happy to say that now I take off my AT friendly hat and put on my salesman's hat and say it's great. Everything's in stock. I've got a warehouse north of Toronto in Woodbridge. We have people processing orders the same day. If you get to us typically before 2, maybe even 3 o'clock in the afternoon, your order will go out the very same day. We've got lots of ink, lots of paper. I literally have 600 pens in stock, and I got some more coming. So in 2022 and early 2023, I can guarantee you that there's absolutely no problem with supply.
And I heard you ship worldwide.
To, consumer electronics these days, that's great. I have a couple of other hats. For some of you know this, I recognize some names. Some of you know that I'm a mortgage broker. Some of you know that I also run a software business. And some of you also know that we're a PC and computer hardware reseller. And I can tell you, I've got customers waiting literally 9 and 11 months for Lenovo branded laptops, and they're still not here. It's insane. Very frustrating, taxing for their patience for sure, but happily we've got the product, and they're in Canada, customs paid, everything else. If I may, I'll highlight to you that you can today, unlike in the past, it's entirely possible for you to go and buy it directly from the manufacturer. Obviously, I would have a personal preference that you buy it from us, but you can buy it from them. Just a little gotcha that you will have a customs and duties charge as it comes across the border. So while it might look like you're paying, don't forget you're paying US dollars, you got to convert the currency, and then you're going to get this $43 customs charges before you can actually take possession, and you'll discover that in fact it's cheaper from us. And again, we're in Canada, ships the same day. If you're in Ottawa, Toronto, Montreal, generally Southern Ontario and Quebec, it's pretty much overnight, max 2 days, 3 days to Winnipeg and to the Maritimes, and something like 4 or 5 days to Calgary and to Vancouver. And Victoria, if you're anybody from Victoria, it takes a long time. So there you go.
Yeah, and you do have, if people are interested, you do ship worldwide, is what I've understood too. So that's great, because I know we have some people from afar.
We've got a coupon code for all of you guys to share as well that you can use to save 5% on your purchases as well. And you're welcome to use that for your own use, for your students' use, for institution use. No problem. I'll tell you right now, it's N.O.A.T, N.O.A.T 2022. And if somebody of you are going to leave already because I've told you that, well, okay, but you now have that. You now have that promo code N.O.A.T 2022, and that's good through the end of the calendar year. So
perfect. Really appreciate that, Joe. And
yeah, go on, say, Doug, you're welcome to share it with your other assistive technologists. I'd prefer, candidly, that you not share it with students and their families and everything else. And am I maybe making my preference would be that it's a benefit of being an AT and being part of this community. The intention is to share it with you all, not with the broader public. And I guess what I'm really saying is, please don't go publish it on a website somewhere and say, here's a coupon code that works. It'll happen. It always happens. But I'm expressing my request that you respect the intention for the coupon code, and that it be a benefit that you get as for being a member of N.O.A.T. Keep your N.O.A.T. memberships up to date.
Perfect. I appreciate that, Joe. And that's exactly, I'd encourage people. It is one of the benefits. We have these occasionally these offers from vendors and suppliers, and it's a wonderful benefit of ours. So keeping the secrets the secret and encouraging your colleagues that aren't members to join. So Ellie just was curious about the durability. I think you've talked about the durability, unless there's anything else to add there.
Really, I'm very happy with it. I can, with some emphasis, I can say that I really believe all those issues are not a problem, and I'd have no problem throwing this around the room. It'll be fine.
And
I have a vague idea, by the way, that a cap came with this. I think it did, and I've already lost it, and I don't care. So don't ask me for the cap. I can't get them, and you don't want it. It doesn't matter. It's fine.
I vaguely recall way back, and I think it was 2013, Joe did an in-person, back when we did those things, presentation for me at my institution. And I remember him throwing the Livescribe, the Echo one across lecture hall, and there were some gasps. I was trying to think of a more vibrant word to describe the reaction. Picked it up and he used it, and then we later found out that's the same pen he's throwing around in how many lectures or presentations and demonstrations. So hopefully this one is as durable, if not more.
It's considerably better, I have to say. So yeah, it's designed for the environment in which it's going to live. So I'm happy
but
to say.
Still, accidental damage is not covered under the warranty. Disclaimer.
I mean, you don't go swimming. Yeah, exactly right. But
yeah, so
anything resembling normal wear and tear is going to be just fine.
All right, just one last question from Ellie here. How is the Mac version M1 native, or is it still Intel based?
I don't know. I think I'm pretty sure that it's going to be the Intel, the newer, the newer version of Mac's hardware. Does the software run on the older CPUs? I honestly don't know. I'm sorry, I don't know. I want to believe it does, but I don't know.
Okay. Perfect. So that's something maybe we can find out and add in with the resources for the replay. Chris has just noted here that he's loaned out a few already and has no issues, except with the cap. They had one of the caps break, Chris. So
don't worry about the cap.
If you don't lose it, you'll break it.
And I mean, who's not going to? How do you not lose it? Like there's, I guess it does kind of come off and go on the other side, and that's fine. I'm a forgetful person, I guess. I have never ever managed to not lose a Livescribe cap for more than a week, and happily it's never been an issue. And the very worst case is, I can imagine, is it possible if you really whip against the cement wall, could you damage maybe the cartridge tip? Yeah, maybe you replace the cartridge, that'll be fine. But the camera and everything else is really very well protected. I'm not going to quite call it indestructible, but you'd have to put considerable effort into doing any real damage to it. So yeah,
time will tell with some. Yeah, time will tell with some of the students that we support, but yes, it's good to know that it hasn't gone the other way and become more fragile. So Ellie also had the question about scaling up the delivering multiple students across the terms, like the school year and library technology checkout and that, which is the same as Jim's question. So I know we're going to get to that. I know we scheduled this for an hour and a half and we got 15 minutes left. So
I think even before I get into the mobile version, I would like to talk about that question, make sure we do talk about it. And I would also like to say that if you ever need stuff in short order, we can even do rush deliveries overnight. We got the stock, everything is good. So don't hesitate to reach out to us. We do take purchase orders from institutions as well. It'd be nice if you had the courtesy to maybe pick up the phone and call us and say, hey, would you take my PO? And, if you're a real person, you exist, and you're going to treat us with respect, then sure. And we'll give you the same 30-day terms that we offer others. If you want to pay with a credit card, PayPal, that's also fine. And many institutions do that. But such customers as Northern College and a number of the larger school boards and so on, they all are very happy to send us POs, and that all works. So that's great. Right. So let's talk about the lending in the library and all that stuff. And candidly, if we manage to squeeze it in for all things mobile, it really won't take too long. And I'm just going to show you that it works, and we'll see. So I hear people talk to me about lending in the library, and I don't deny that there's elements of that infrastructure that I don't really understand, like what your process is. But I think in the end, what it comes down to really is I've got data on my pen from a pen that I've lent to a student. He's had it presumably for the semester, and he's now bringing it back. And I need to reformat it and get stuff done so that I can then lend it back out to the next person. So if that might oversimplify it, but if in fact that's pretty close to the full truth, I'm going to turn my pen on, I'm going to connect it, and I'm going to come in here to the settings and the pen manager. No, it's not the pen manager. That's the Bluetooth part.
If you're expecting to be sharing your screen, Joe, it's not.
Oh, thank you for waking me up. Yeah. And I hope that I'm remembering how to do this, because I haven't had to reflash my SmartPen in some time. So I'm sharing the screen now as opposed to the application. I hope that's still gonna work. And what you're gonna look at here for a minute is me struggle to find the spot where you can format the product right in here. And I think I'm pretty sure the answer is that you cannot right in here. If in the diagnostics, let me just disconnect and reconnect. Am I going to get an option show up? I can reboot the pen and I can start my diagnostic, but it's not, there isn't an option here to reflash it. So that means that just like it had been on the Echo, the previous original Echo, I will share with Doug, anybody that wants it, the URL for the Flash application that runs on Mac or on Windows that you run. This is different and separate from the, because remember in our discussion earlier, I was talking about, where's my downloads? This is the application that I use to actually install the software on my desktop, but it's not this. There's a separate application that is used to flash the device, and you have two modes. One mode in which it will update the operating system, really rather like updating it as we've seen in here in Livescribe. It just updates the flash, the firmware. Most of what you're going to want to do is not only update the firmware, but also completely wipe out all the data stored on it. And by the way, once it's gone, and you get back to a truly brand new pen with no data on it at all. Neither is even registered. So if you remember that process from the Echo, the original Echo, it's the same process now for this. I had it in my head that they were introducing something in here that was going to make that possible, but I'm mistaken, and that is not the case. I don't see the option. It must not be. And so, yes, you have to go and again, I'll give Doug that URL to go and grab that code, and that's how that job will work. Good. And the only issue people have had so far is with the cap. Yeah, you never get the cap back, so that's something to worry about. So, Doug, in your opinion, do you think I've done enough to answer the specific question about the library lending out thing? How does one go about reflashing it? There's the medium-sized answer I've given you.
Yeah, I think I thought I had seen at one point, this was an early version of the desktop app or the software, that there was something in there in one of the options screens or something to allow a reset or I forget the exact wording, but maybe they've removed it with updates or such, which wouldn't make sense, but therefore it would make sense. Yeah. I can't recall where I saw it. Something it was, I thought, under the options or preferences or something. But
yeah. And by the way, if anybody that's missing this, as you're seeing my screen, these things on the side are exactly the same thing as these things across the top. It's like, as a UI guy, because I run a software business, this drives me crazy. And this hamburger that covers up the thing, it should push the whole thing over. These little details really bother me more than they should. But yeah, I'm not seeing it, and I would expect to find it kind of here in the settings, and it's not there. So
okay, so so that's, I just wanted to clarify that I had seen it at one point. So maybe they'll bring it back in the future.
Maybe.
We can hope.
And maybe I'm mistaken, and I'm denying you an obvious thing here. I'm just going to do a search on the word flash. Oh, but and I didn't talk about this. This search function works really well. I think I have the word test in here somewhere, and it's great. Like I really should emphasize this with some vigor. One of the great things of this product is your student can take a whole year of physics notes, and every time he wants to look up Newtonian whatever, he'll type in velocity, angular momentum, whatever it is he wants, and he'll find every instance of that word, handwritten though it may be, and he'll get those pages that include that word. If I'm sure many of you already know about that, but oh my God, that is for me, that's even the audio is great, but it's nothing compared to the fact that I can find my stuff when I want to, when I'm studying and I need to know what I need to know about mitochondrial whatever. Awesome. Love that. And sorry to get too excited about it, but God, that's awesome.
That's okay. Footnotes will be coming in the Echo 3 and a typed transcript. So I'm just encouraging people in the audience to add in any questions, comments, thoughts about the lending library process into the chat, and or raise your hand using the raise hand feature in the toolbar, or even just unmute yourselves and speak up if I know that this is a question I asked Joe to address, and even though it seems like a simple question and a simple process, I want to make sure that people's their questions are answered in regards to the lending library, because it's something that we all have to come up with a process to do this. Understanding Joe doesn't know what our library process is or what our AT loan equipment is, so we can't get into that nitty gritty. But if there's any questions that you've got for Joe regarding this beyond the flashing of the pen, which is in layman's terms erasing the data and like factory reset is basically what it is, and handing it out. And while we give people a few seconds to either formulate in the chat or unmute if they want to ask here, I'm just curious, Joe, the difference once we've got a pen paired with a computer, from a backup perspective, in that if we flash the pen and that student goes back and uses the pen the next year, say we're bringing it back in the summer and we reloan it in September, and there's all that component. Do you have any guidance on what happens there?
Let's imagine the scenario where I return my pen. I don't have it. Maybe somebody else even uses it for a while or whatever, but I eventually get a newly flashed pen back, and it happens to be the same serial number as the one that I gave before. And I'm still running. I still have my same old laptop and all my Livescribe data still on it. So all that to say that whether I've seen that smart pen before or indeed that particular serial number is brand new to me, doesn't matter. If it's flashed, it's going to come in like a factory new, and it will not be aware of or take any consequence for the data that's already in my Livescribe Plus desktop. It's there. It's old. It's as though it's on another pen. If you didn't already know this, you could have any number of Echo smart pens connected to your one computer. So in that classroom environment where I have one computer that all my students share and they literally submit their homework on their pen, I can't say that's a super popular use case, but it happens. You can totally do that, and you can have any number of pens, and Jim and Sally and John and Mary can plug in their pens, and the teacher can see exactly whose pen has what content, and off you go. So that was true before. It's still true now, and that works really well. And so, yeah, no issues there. In a minute, if you care to, I'll talk about archiving, at least at a philosophical level, in just a sec.
I think so, because that was the next part of my question, was the archiving of the information, because I know through the loan programs that I run for the old Livescribes, is we're faced with what I just asked you of the same student, and sometimes we always name our pens. Yes. And but if they get the exact same pen back, theoretically, I'm going to rename the pen the same name, because it's based on an inventory number. So if they get that same inventoried pen back with the same pen number, it doesn't what you're saying is it doesn't overwrite.
Give it the same name, it's still going to treat it as though it's a brand new item. And importantly, it's not as if the previous data is going to jump onto the pen, because it's not.
And that, so what happens if they if we've got the same pen, and for instance they go back and they were using notebook number 1 in the past, last year and next year they use notebook number 1, still totally separate?
Absolutely.
Okay. Yeah, perfect. Exactly. And okay, so I've got students who, for whatever reason, they ask me to hold on to the pen for next year, but they want it archived so that they can, like, they don't lose it, but at the same time, they don't want to just, we have to meet them where they're at sometimes, and that's their mind frame. So I do want you to talk about the archiving. Carol has just put into the chat here, the factory reset is in the pen manager tab.
Oh, well, good. Somebody's gone to look for it for me. So, well, okay. So that means I have to connect it via Bluetooth, and wouldn't you know it, this computer doesn't happen to have Bluetooth in it. And that's why I had my laptop set up. We ended up getting into doing it on a PC. So thank you to whoever that was, Carol. And I won't be able to demonstrate it to you, but there we have our answer. I did think I was in here somewhere, but I wasn't finding it, and I'm not finding it because I'm not Bluetooth connected to this particular PC. So there we are. But so thank you. That's great. Thank you for the support.
So connect the pen via Bluetooth, and you'll.
Question, Doug, from somebody about printing pages, and I'm just going to jump to that. If I right mouse click on this page, I can export it as an image, which turns out to be a PNG as opposed to a JPEG. I can export it to Word, and I can certainly export it as a PDF. Importantly, however, that PDF is dumb and no audio in it. It's the photocopy of the page. And the only one that includes the audio component is that MP4 that we looked at before.
Okay, and I was going to bring Kevin's question in there exactly about the paper, just in case Kevin's inquiring about the other side of printing the paper is printing the blank paper, like we used to all be able to do if we could afford the printer that was capable of doing it.
Right. So it used to be, I haven't, maybe Carol's going to find this for me too, but I'll tell you that it used to be the case in the old Livescribe app. Frankly, you could keep that Echo desktop app still installed on your PC, if only to be able to very conveniently use that little function that was in there to print the paper. You can separately go to the Livescribe website and sorry, here we are here. And I'll just mention to you that if I go to livescribe.com, and here just, this is a good thing for us to talk about. You go to support and just type, the knowledge base is really quite good. They do a decent job of this. And so two things. First, if you lose the little card that comes with the pen, you can come over here and print the PDF version of this, and it looks and ends up looking like that on your paper. It's just a great big version of that little card. And if you ever lose the card and you're library managing things and student manages to lose that, no problem. You can print fresh copies of this card on 8.5 by 11 all you want by doing that. So I'm really glad to have occasion to highlight that. And if I go back here somewhere, and you'll have to forgive me, anybody see it? We're looking for that spot where you can download a PDF of 25 pages of Livescribe paper. You download as a PDF, and so long as your printer can has the resolution, and it really has to, at least it always used to be the case, you had to have PostScript and 600 DPI minimum and color. I've had customers tell me that they've managed to make it work with black and white, and I have to say I don't really understand how that could be, because my understanding is that it needs color. But somewhere in here, and I know I've done it because I've got that physical proof in my hand, I downloaded those PDFs and I printed them, and it worked. So, so somewhere in this list, no doubt, is blank. Or let me just maybe search on that.
So that basically works the exact same way as with the old Echo. Either you keep the old Echo desktop, or you go into this printing the 25-page bundle. And again, with the $6,000 printer.
Right. And if I may say, let's see if we can find the Echo 2 archive thing in here, because there ought to be one. Anyway, I was just going to say, so I'm sorry that I'm not, prepared to, didn't think about doing that in here, but surely someplace in here there's a thing about archive on Livescribe Plus. Anyway, it's very easy. We'll talk about that in just a second. And I do want to just highlight that this is quite a good resource. The tech support at Livescribe is really quite good. They no longer take voice calls, haven't for a long time, but you send them an email. It's customer service, customer support, I forget what it is, .livescribe at N.O.A.T.com. That's the parent company, is N.O.A.T. I'm going to look that up really quick while we're talking, just so because you guys would like to write this down, I think, where you get, if you can't get hold of me, and you will be able to get hold of me, but if you can't and you need some quick help, Their email address is livescribe.customerservice, all one word, no dashes, livescribe.customerservice@anoto.com, A-N-O-T-O. Anoto means I write in Italian, and it's a Scandinavian company, and there you go. So livescribe.customerservice@anoto.com, and if you can't find it in here, they'll help you, and they're really very good. I talk to them often, and I think very highly of them. Okay, so let's talk.
Just put that into the chat for people. Hopefully, I
Yes.
spelled it right.
And you did. That's exactly correct. So thank you for doing that.
Yeah. And,
So Kevin's asking about an updated demo video. You've seen the one on our website, and you're right. It's I was super excited to do that the day I got my new pen. I think the first guy in Canada to have one. Yay for me! And yeah, it was a fun video to record. But yes, it's time to update it and have it be broken down into a bunch of smaller videos on specific topics, and that's coming up soon. I'm very fortunate that my family and I are driving from Montreal. We're driving cross country all the way to Vancouver in our new electric car, and so wish me luck with that. And my ambition is to finish those videos before we leave. So there we go.
Either that, or you'll be finishing it at the charging ports.
Yeah, I'm going to have time to kill. Exactly right. So here's Joe in Wawa, Ontario, and I have nothing to do except record Livescribe videos. So yeah, exactly.
While he waits for the one charging station. No, I'm just.
And hey, who knows what's going to happen? It's going to be an adventure. But we have an 8-year-old at home, and we figured this is the time to have her understand where Swift Current is and Thunder Bay and every other great place we're going to visit. We're very excited about it. It's going to be really fun.
And I can certainly make a joke about Swift Current and your electric car, but I won't. Well, I just did.
There's really good charging in Swift Current. I know that already. I can tell you that I'm going to be there on the 9th of July, and it's going to be awesome. So,
all right, we've got members up in that area that if they're on the call here, I'm not sure if they are or not. If they're looking for a hand-delivered Livescribe pen, let Joe know.
Hey, so I'm serious. By all means, we're leaving Montreal on the 26th of June. We're going via Ottawa, north of the park, so North Bay, Sudbury, to Wawa and the lake, Thunder Bay, on to Winnipeg, and so on. So anybody wants to, get a little handshake over a hot dog as we're camping, totally into that. That'd be fun. Network Assistive Technologists are always fun people in my experience.
Yeah, sometimes we're a little crazy though, Joe. But back to just kidding. Actually, I'm not. The fact I think we were going to talk about. Sorry, we were going into
about archiving really quick, and we'll see if we have time to talk about the mobile experience. So, what is archiving? Why do we do it? So, in the most extreme scenario, there are 4 gigs of storage on here. Nobody really talks about the storage capacity because honestly, who cares? I can tell you that you're never going to fill this thing up. Nobody ever filled up a 2 gig, hardly. We used to sell a 2, a 4, and 8 gig version of the Echoes. It was just I don't want to say it's a money grab from the manufacturer, but there was, if in the end you have a 2 gig pen and finally you manage to fill it up, you just archive it and it frees it up entirely, and you just keep doing that. So why would you spend nearly double on the 8 gig? The only difference is you're going to archive it 1/4 as often, which means never. It was never very sensible. So, but suffice to say that with the 4 gigs that are in this pen, very unlikely you're ever really going to have students that want to archive for their own purposes. But you might, if you get a pen back from the library and you decide that you want to archive your students' notes so that they come back to you in a panic. Oh, I lost my notes, and do you have a copy of them? Yeah, I do. And you got that pen, you connected it to your computer. You recognize that it's one of the many pens that you got on that computer, and you did archive it, and that got the data off the pen. And by the way, to rate when you archive, so that's the big thing here to talk about. What is archiving in the first place? Again, you only really need to do it when your pen gets full, but you can do it anytime. And what does it mean when you do it? It simply means that we're taking today the data is on my pen, and because the data, when I sync it to my desktop, it's making a copy to my desktop. It's not downloading it from and erasing it from my pen. The data is still on the pen, and the proof is that I'm simply able to tap and listen to it again. Obviously, I couldn't do that. I couldn't tap and listen to it again unless the data were here. So again, we're making copies as we send it back along. So that data is there. So now if you really want to get rid of the data on here, you can do that through the archiving process. And the last little comment here is, why else would you do it? Not only because it's full, but so here's another little comment that's important, Doug, from a practical standpoint, and this does merit the 60 seconds we're going to give it. It used to be that Livescribe had a series of paper products. Excuse me while I reach over here to show you that we used to have small paper products like this little notebook here. And some of you will remember the spiral bound version of this guy as well. All those smaller 5.8 by 8.5 paper formats, I think it was called A5, gone. I don't know why. Honestly, I can tell you that we didn't sell many of them. Everybody wanted the 8.5 by 11. And so do we have customers that wish they could get small paper? Yeah. And I literally have none of it. I might have the world's last clean hardcover notebook right there, and it's still sealed, believe it or not. And then even with respect to the 8.5 by 11, the ones that are really experts on Livescribe will remember that we had two kinds of 8.5 by 11 notebooks. So there's this one, which is one of 4 of so-called 3 subject notebooks. What makes a 3 subject notebook is the simple fact that it's got these cardboard dividers in it that breaks it up into 3. And it's got 200 pages of writable. So 100 physical pages, 200 writable pages are in this book. And this had been in a series 1, 2, 3, and 4 of the 3 subject notebook. Well, now, for whatever reason, notebooks 3 and 4 no longer available. That part number had been ANA 27 and 28. They just stopped making them, and I have no idea why. They just stopped making them. What I can get, what I have, and I have lots of, are ANA 24 and 25, books number 1 and number 2. And so there's that. In an analogous way, some of you also know, maybe even know the part number, ANA 17 and 18 were the 4-packs of single subject notebooks, and the ANA 18, which had been books number 5, 6, 7, and 8, also gone. Can I tell you why? No, I can't. Admittedly, we didn't sell many of them. Everybody bought the first 4-pack, and students got through the year with it, and they archived their notes, and the next year they'd use another 4-pack, and that was good enough. We just didn't sell many of those ANA 18s with 4, 5, 6, and 7. And for whatever reason, the manufacturers discontinued them. So what we can offer you are the 4-packs of single subject notebooks, the 1-pack of 3 subject notebooks, numbers 1 and 2 in here, and then that 4-pack was 1, 2, 3, and 4. And when finally you've gone through all your 1, 2, 3, and 4, and you want to open up another number 1 book, odd as it might sound, if you take your pen and start writing in another number 1 book, it'll think you're still writing in the old number 1 book. You have to archive that old number 1 book, or it's going to give you a bit of a mess. And just because we're short of time, and because I expect that many of you already know what I'm talking about, I probably won't elaborate on it. But that's the real reason you're going to be archiving with some frequency, is specifically because you're going to go back to using a paper product that you've used before. And if you don't remember that step, then what you'll get is your new notes appearing to write on top of your old notes. When you sync your pen, you'll get one on top of the other, and it's a mess. So there we go. I hope that was sufficiently clear in the time we've got available. Doug,
Yep.
What do you think?
No, I do. The archiving feature is built into the desktop software, correct?
And and there it is right there. So remember that you're looking at whole books now. Is it possible to archive pages? I've never done that before, and I guess it isn't. I'm not seeing. You can delete a page and it's truly gone, but if you want to archive a book, you right mouse click on that book from this notebooks tab, and there it is. And I'll remind you that at least it had been the case with the Echo desktop, you couldn't archive it unless the pen was connected, because that's how it would go in and delete those pages. So I'm actually kind of surprised that I have this archive option not grayed out to me while my pen's not connected. So just for fun, let's go and archive this thing and see what happens. Yeah, look at that. Happily, it doesn't work. So let's go ahead and connect it. And so again, I've got my notebook number 2, and I've only really written on 1 page with this pen. So I'm now that I have it connected, I show that I'm connected down here at the bottom. I'm going to right mouse click archive. Do you want to archive the notebook? Yes, I do. And there it is, gone. And in principle now, if I disconnect my pen and I were to go back to that page, I'll just do this real quick because I won't be able to listen to it anymore because, well, look at that, it still worked. So I don't, that's frustrating me, and I'm glad I did this. It just proves that I obviously there's something I'm not understanding about how the new one works, because in my view, that should have deleted it from here. So maybe archiving works differently now than it used to. This is a detail I haven't researched obviously carefully enough. It's listed here as being archived. Let's just run a real quick experiment. I'm going to turn on my microphone. Just give me 1 sec to do that. Okay, it's recording. Testing 1, 2, 3, and stop. Okay, and I'm now going to connect this back up. And I assert that it's going to give me a new active notebook. So there it is. And there is the page there that does not include anything from the previous book. I guess that's as I was expected, because as far as this is concerned, it's invisible. It's not there. And remember that I have to go back to my Pencasts tab and sync again. Why? I don't know. Select all, download to get that audio component. And when I'm done, I'm going to now make sure I get the right one. This is 1500 hours. So where is it? That's 1230. Somebody help me find it.
Does it allow you to column sort like in an Excel spreadsheet?
Yeah, you know, oh, there it is. Oh, it's 3:10 p.m. I was looking for the number 15, but it's in a 12-hour clock. So anyway, there it is.
1, 2, 3.
So there you go. And that page, as you'll notice, doesn't include any of the other data on it. So, but I'm still really quite surprised that the data is still on my pen. That's making me think that we're really going to have to to flash the pen, to wipe it out completely. I'm going to play with it. That's something I confess I thought I was perfectly prepared for our meeting, but that's a detail that I should have better prepared for in our meeting. And whenever we have occasion next, Doug, I'll send you a little email, maybe a short video to describe the minutia of archiving. In fact, what I'm going to do is publish it on the website along with those other ones I'm going to do in North Bay. There'll be something on there on the specifics of archiving in Livescribe Desktop on Windows. So we'll commit.
Perfect. That's great, Joe. When you're putting that video together, just to add one more thing to your totally empty to-do list, if I know that the data security is a big issue with these pens when they're used in a placement setting, specifically for like social work or medical practicums, things like that. So if you can cobble together, whether it's from Livescribe, N.O.A.T, or whether it's your own little blurb about the data security and how to securely erase the data, make sure it's totally gone, as well as in the olden days with the Echo, we used to be able to password protect paper replays. I sense that's gone because the PDF paper replay is gone, but you mentioned it's still available in the mobile end. So if there's any thing that comes together there, if you could just maybe just do a short little overview for us, because that's a big thing with loaning these out. So
sure. And if I may, I'll just digress just for 1 second. I'm at least a part-time salesman, and wouldn't you know that I had the Ontario government come and say they're ready to buy 600 pens. Show me your security methodology so that we can use this properly. And I have to explain to them, there is none. Like if you steal this pen, anybody can plug it in and pretty much use it, and there's not much you can do about it. And that it's a design point, it's an environment, it's a market they just haven't even attempted to address. And I did kind of think that the new product would include some of that overlay, because there are absolutely applications commercially where data security would be very important, but to the best of my knowledge, no such thing is available at present on the Echo 2.
Okay, so then the data security is limited to us locking up the pen and hoping that the thief is honest, as well as then archiving / flashing the pen.
Yeah, it's about flashing it. Yeah, exactly.
Okay, perfect. Jim has just put a note in the chat here. I think he's referring back to the all the different notebooks that you were explaining that were available now, and so the fact that they still work.
still work. It's the same paper, the same part numbers. Now I'm going to thread a bit of a needle here and say that here is an ANA 24. It's the book 2 of the 3 subject notebooks, ANA 24. And it turns out that there's a new version of ANA 24. That's what I've got here versus the very oldest ones. Well, the very oldest ones are 10 years old. The newer-ish ones, as far back as 3 or 4 years ago, it turns out that the controls on previous versions of ANA 17, 24, and 25 were slightly different. You'll recognize them when you have a whole bunch of controls at the bottom. That's the old version. The new version doesn't. There you are. And sometimes those controls on the old products just don't work the way that you'd expect them to. And that's why the card and the ability to print that paper, if you have those old paper products, you can still use them for notes and for audio and everything else. You're not going to throw the paper away, but you might find the controls don't always work. You might just break down and buy some new paper from us, which would be fine, but really no need. You can continue to use that paper that's on the shelf. Even the half notebook, literally at some point, the student brings you back a half-used notebook. If you want to, literally take the written pages out and give them a notebook that starts at page 54. They don't know the difference, and it'll be just fine. So anyway, there you go.
Okay, perfect.
Okay, any other questions?
I think we've cleared up everything in the chat. Although people they're still here. If you have questions, please add them into the chat as we wind down here, and or raise your hand using the raise hand toolbar or tool on the Google Meet toolbar at the bottom of your screen, or even just unmute if you want to contribute by voice. I know that Jim is back in the meeting, and Jim had to leave, and Jim had the questions about the library. So I think, unfortunately, Jim missed most of that discussion. So if I think in 3 words or less here, Joe, if we can sum up the library lending program for Jim and give Jim the opportunity to ask any specific questions.
So definitely let me get you the URL for the Flash utility. That's the big thing. Even archiving books would get data off of the pen, and it really was off the pen, but I just demonstrated that that didn't happen. So I really want to figure that out. So for today, and for the purposes of the question you're asking, the solution I'm offering is reflash factory reset. And I hope I'm not being too glib about it, but that's what there is.
Okay, perfect. And Jim says he'll watch the replay, but at the same time, Jim, if you have anything that you specifically want to address, because that's the summary of it right now. So if there's anything that you wanted to ask Joe, by all means, let us know you wish to participate here, Jim. And I know that you had wanted to mention a bit about the mobile environment, Joe. So maybe just let us know what the mobile environment offers and what's available.
Yeah, so here we are. So this is the part that you remember I was concerned about showing you the installation of the software on my computer, but of course it always get wrong, and wasn't I wise to record all of that so you could see it, and I didn't have to burden you with me, struggling and rebooting my computer. Thank God. That's great. So mission accomplished there, but I figured that for the mobile, I would get away with showing you exactly how it actually goes. And so here I am with my pen. I've turned it on. Here I am with my little card, and I'm looking for my Bluetooth connector. So it says pairing on my card right where my finger is. So I'm gonna, and if you take a look at the pen itself, it's showing my time and date, but there's no Bluetooth icon. So now I'm gonna tap the pairing button. And when I do that, you'll notice, at least you'll hopefully see that there's some flashing going on. You kind of sort of see that. When it's in pairing mode, that Bluetooth icon is flashing in there. And that's my opportunity to come in here. And I think this is going to work. I wonder if I have to go back to my Android settings and get the Bluetooth scan discovery to work. But let's see what happens if I just click activate. Yeah, it's not working. So let me go back to here and my settings and scan, and my Bluetooth gang is still showing up here. And now you're not going to see the Echo 2 show up in here. This is a different, I'm pretty sure this is a different physical pen that I previously installed here. We'll find out, I guess, in just a second, but for the moment, it's still scanning. And now I'm going to go back to my Livescribe desktop. And now if I click activate, shoot. Okay, so let's, don't I wish that I could get this to work in real time. So it's not letting me do darn thing. Now, is it because I didn't know my name is not, by the way, the registration process is more or less not working in Canada. The manufacturer is aware of the issue, and so far it doesn't seem to be doing anything about it. You pretty much can't register. So I'm just going to put in my thing here, and maybe because that was required, maybe that's why I wasn't able to move forward. Am I still in pairing mode? Yes. So I'm once again going to try to activate it, and there we go. And I crashed. Isn't that spectacular? I crashed the app altogether. Isn't that fun? So
Now, is that the Livescribe SmartPen app on the Android?
Here it is working again. This is the Livescribe Plus app on mobile. And so what I did there, let me just go. So here I'm in the app, and I want to, in order to connect my pen, now admittedly my Bluetooth pairing is turned off, so I'm going to tap that again and get it back into that mode. And I'm going to click, after I've installed the Livescribe Plus application, I'm clicking here to connect to the SmartPen. It brings me to this dialog box, and I'm entering here. So why isn't it letting me do that? That's, as you can see, I've previously had data on here. It was working, and I chose, maybe stupidly, to not prepare this part of the presentation quite as well as I should. So once again, I'll have a video to describe the minutia of it. So I have on occasion had to reboot my Android device to get it to behave just the way I want. But let's assume for the moment we do get it connected and everything is here. I can now come in here and look at any given page. I can once again click and listen to that audio. So this is kind of a pencasty feature where I press the just let me use my physical hands here on the screen. There's my whole page. I'm going to pick that guy, go to the pencast, there. So now the audio is coming out of my Android tablet, so you're not going to hear it much, but I'm hearing what's happening there. So so where before in the Livescribe desktop app, we've got things laid out in a certain way that we've now become familiar with. In the mobile application, I'll make this a little bit bigger. It's just laid out differently. These are all my controls for my operating system down here at the bottom. And in Livescribe, I've got this left-hand hamburger that we'll come back to in just a sec. And I've got this thing that connects to my pen. I'm just going to click on my settings here to see. Yeah, it's not, I was looking for a connection thing in here, but it's not there. This cloud services is going to be exactly analogous to what you saw before. If you want to get a one-button touch connection to Evernote, Google Drive, or the third one, whichever it was, you'll have that in there as well. So here you have, in this set of pages, a pencast view, and this is where you can click and do stuff with it. There's a page view where I can look at whole pages. And this feed view is the one that we'll use for the snippets that we're going to use for a handwriting to text conversion, which works pretty well. So let me just remind myself here. I'm going to go to a notebook. I'm going to see what's in here. Look at this. This is what we just did. It did connect, and I'm embarrassing myself now. So that's interesting. And let me go to my pencast. So here's probably the thing that I want to communicate to you is that the pen is bipolar in its personality. And if we had a little more time, I would want to correctly, and I will correctly in a video demonstrate that the audio that I record in what I'll call a PC mode, independent of the mobile app, the audio did not get sent via Bluetooth into here. The handwriting is, but the audio isn't. And as a result, the audio is not and will not be in my mobile device. If I want to have audio in the Livescribe Plus app on mobile, I have to record it in paired mode. That way, it has to be sending and storing in the mobile device in order for the audio to be there at all. Ask me why. I'm sure there's, as a computer scientist, I'll tell you that there's, I can imagine a couple of very good reasons why technically it needs to be that way. I will also say, as a consumer, it is not intuitive. You'd think that however I recorded my audio, I just have it everywhere. And that's certainly what the behavior that I'm expecting to get, but that's not what you get. And that's why we have this mobile versus Echo 2 mode in here. These were Echo 2 pages. And you'll see that, and I don't deny that this confuses me that they've got this here, but there's nothing playing here. And this is the Pencast tab. So, but I have it from them that, yeah, now it says, so maybe there's been an update here, because look, I've got this message that was definitely not here when I was looking at this even a couple of weeks ago. Please connect your pen to play. So let's give one last chance to trying to get this thing to connect properly. And let me put that in pairing mode. And because, clearly we got this data in, we just recorded this today, that's for sure. And I'm going to go back to my settings here. So here's my pen. This must be the pen that I had on here, and I'm just going to click connect. And obviously it connected, but so I apologize. There's something about it that I don't use my Android version very much. I'm kind of married to my async PC view. So again, this really quite disappointing for me too, to leave you on a weak note for the whole presentation. I think we've done a lot of really cool things together, but yeah, I'm going to leave on a weak note where I show you that I don't know what I'm doing with the mobile. The data's there, but I'm not getting it to behave in the way that I want, and it's not demonstrating that it's as though it's connected. Because when it's connected, I'll see this pen being identified as being present and so on. So it's kind of weird. So forgive me for that.
I think, Joe, the fact is that that you showing us this today, I know that we've bounced around through a whole bunch of stuff. Some of it has worked flawlessly. Some of it is identified and highlighted areas where we, as assistive technologists, we need to be able to be aware of what is out there, what these little shortcomings are, whether these shortcomings are fixed with these continuous updates. And continuous updates are lovely. At the same time, they're evil, because we have a hard time. So we struggle to keep up with them, and they surprise us when we go in to do things, especially when we find out that the student tells us the
absolutely.
update.
I've got caught my pants down. There's something here that I'm not familiar with that I should have better prepared for, and thought I mastered it, but clearly I've messed it up. So I'll make it up to you.
Ellie has said it perfectly in the comments here. Is troubleshooting experience is always valuable, and that is the fact.
Watch a smart guy do a face plant. There you go.
so the fact that we struggle as it is with these constant updates, because the students end up being the ones to tell us that something's updated, and we go in and go, would have been nice to know. So
again, this and other things will get to find their way in here well before your back to school season gets underway, and you'll have good confidence that it works. If I may, I'll conclude on this part though to say, why does the mobile experience exist? And the experience, the application is as different as it kind of looks here when compared to the PC version. Here are my various books. Here are the various feeds that I've got. Here are the pencasts that I've recorded, etc. They're all in here, and and So that's great. And so why is somebody doing this way? The two things are that, yes, it's cool with connectivity when you're doing it this way. The microphone that's being used now is not the microphone in here, but rather the microphone in my mobile device. The data is being stored not in here, but in my mobile device. That's where it lives. It's residing natively in there. When I want to make that movie or do other things to export it, I'm doing it from my mobile device. And at least until now, the two halves of that bipolar personality were completely separate and distinct. And I'm expressing genuine surprise that this snippet of code that we just put into this book, after I transferred it to my PC, it is here. And I can tell you that wasn't the case when I looked at it last time. So maybe they are getting closer to that, consumer friendly, sensible goal of having it sync in both environments and just behave the way anybody would expect. And here's hoping that's exactly what's happening. So forgive me again for not being fully up to date. But that's why you're going to have it there. Again, is a student going to use the mobile device and the notes on there to, then go and be able to write an essay? The short answer is no. And it's also true. I've seen this in classrooms where the students spend just too much time fussing with their mobile devices and getting them to work and get them in Bluetooth and getting, like, it works. It works nicely, and you'll master it, and you get to the point where you just tap on the icon, you open the app, you get it to sync in just 2 seconds. You'll get that flow working. It's not a problem, but you do have to have your pen. It has to be turned on. It's got to be charged. You got to have your device. You got to have your icon set up and everything else. And that alternative compared to, I have my pen, I have ink, and I have paper, and I just start writing. And certainly we've seen better experiences in educational environments where the asynchronous PC-based behaviors tend to be more successful, and in the end result in the outcomes that we talked about at the outset. It's really about getting better outcomes for your students, and we find that mode is the better way to go. But hey, my opinion might evolve between now and August, and we'll see what I say.
No, I appreciate it, Joe, and we'll be looking for those updates. And I do direct people back to your website, the smartpencentral.com, in order to be able to be updated on some of these and to watch those videos, as well as I just for those who are registered and weren't able to stay to the end of the video today. In the chat, I just put in your website address of smartpencentral.com.
That's right.
Smartpencentral.com, and the coupon code for the discount, and that'll be included with the replay as well in the resources. So as well, the email to contact you directly is now in the chat for Joe at smartpencentral.com, JOE at smartpencentral.com. So Joe, this product, it's an ever evolving product. It's been a long time coming. We've waited.
So
I hate to say that we've waited patiently, because I don't think we've been patient.
I've been patient to get it, that's for sure. And why? Because it's a really great product, and you just couldn't get it. It was just disappointing that we had to wait so long. I don't deny that.
Yeah, and some parts of it do seem like it's come to market prematurely. Although with the wait, I would question prematurely. But for a polished, finished product, I wonder. And it's exciting to see that they have the ability to add more than they did in the past with the old Echo with technology, so they can update it as we go. We can get these fixes, potentially new features, maybe, who knows. The fact it's exciting times ahead, and I know that you're keeping on top of it. So I do encourage you to keep in touch with us and let us know. Hopefully Livescribe will focus on this product and not branch out like they did before and try and wow us with other versions. It would be nice to just have one that keeps being developed and is solid. That would be, I think, a wish for all of us in the assistive technology world. So yeah, it's been a great pleasure, Joe, to see you do this live and see the trials and tribulations that you've had. And as was mentioned earlier, troubleshooting experiences that's valuable for all of us. Learning experience, that's what we're here for. And versus a polished presentation from a salesperson who just wants us to buy the pen because it works perfectly every single time out of the box. We can guarantee that. We know that's not true.
Doug, you wanted to hear about the blood, the sweat, and the tears, and now that you
Yeah.
have heard about that, salesman's hats on. Please come and buy lots of product. We have it on sale for you this week. And
Nope. And I think that goes to a point, Joe, is that buying it from yourself is we're able to get that one-to-one. If we as an assistive technologist are having the difficulties with a student or with one of our loaner pens or that, we can turn to you. And if you don't know the answer right off top, you're going to sit down. You're going to pull off to the side of the road on your road trip. You're going to plug the car in while you figure it to charge, while you figure this problem out for us.
Yes, sir. That's my personal guarantee to every one of you. That's no question.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if